Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I wish to publicly recognise the huge contribution that volunteers make to my Mayo community, to South Australia and indeed to Australia. Volunteers are the backbone of community organisations, from sporting clubs to Meals on Wheels, from Surf Life Saving to the Red Cross and beyond. Volunteers provide hours of their valuable time and labour, and it is their contribution that my community so greatly appreciate. I also wish to recognise the great work of the peak organisation for volunteers in South Australia, Volunteering SA, and in particular CEO Evelyn O'Loughlin, who tirelessly advocates and supports volunteers in my home state. In 2014, South Australia had the second highest volunteering rates in Australia, with almost 2/5 of South Australians having volunteered in the previous 12 months, and nearly half of those volunteering for more than 10 years. According to the Australian Unity Wellbeing Index, my electorate of Mayo is the happiest electorate in Australia, and I believe much of that is because of our high rate of volunteering and our connection to our community. According to the ABS stats, people volunteer because they want to help others and because it brings a sense of personal satisfaction. Volunteering strengthens person-to-person bonds in our communities, our individual and our collective well-being. Volunteering Australia estimates that the annual contribution of volunteering to our national economic and social well-being is $290 billion. $290 billion is more than what mining, retail and agriculture contribute to our community put together. And support for volunteering doesn't just happen by itself. It requires active and targeted investment. And community-based organisations known as volunteering support services, they find, train and manage volunteers to make sure that their work is effective, professional and safe. As we have seen, volunteering is not a low-value activity by any metric. It is a small but significant investment by government, creating a huge multiplier effect in the Australian community. Federal funding of support of volunteering services from now on in this budget will only be available for people who are deemed disadvantaged or for projects specifically targeting disadvantaged people. This means that the arts, sports, recreational bodies, environment, education, heritage groups and emergency services will no longer qualify for support to manage volunteering. For South Australia, 10 out of the 12 funded services that support volunteering are set to close. They will cease to operate. This includes services provided by Southern Volunteering, which operates in the Southern Vales, Fleurieu and Kangaroo Island regions. Southern Volunteering will cease to operate and they have been receiving funding since 1984 if the federal government does not change what they have put in the budget. And they only receive $120,000 a year from the federal budget, and they do this incredibly well, tremendously well. Volunteering Australia's CEO, Adrian Piccone, has expressed grave concern that this year's budget has completely overlooked the volunteering sector. It is a short-sighted decision by government. Successive federal governments have reduced volunteering grant funding. It was $21 million in 2008. In 2014, it was reduced to $10 million. Proposed changes are going to mean that dedicated support from the federal government for volunteers will be substantially less than it was before. The decrease in funding to the sector will also reduce the ability of job seekers to meet their mutual obligation requirements through participation in volunteering activities, and that fails to acknowledge the role volunteering plays in providing potential pathways of employment. We know there's a clear link between volunteering and employment, and with the mantra of jobs and growth, I really expected better from this federal government. So I am disappointed in the government's short-sightedness, and I urge the government to reinstate their funding for volunteer management. And I just want to, Deputy Speaker, run through. This is going to affect regional South Australia far more than metropolitan South Australia. The Riverland, Port Lincoln, Limestone Coast. I do hope the member for Grey and the member for Barker come out and publicly condemn these decisions made by government. To the thousands of volunteers in Mayo, the ones on the gate on a Saturday morning when it's freezing cold, and the ones who are there for football, the ones who are in the canteen, the ones who are delivering meals to our elderly, the ones at Working Bees on a Sunday afternoon. I am absolutely indebted for your generosity. We all are. And